So without further ado, I would like to introduce today's guest, Mr. Gustavo Olivieri. I just want to make sure I'm getting the name right. I promise if I'm not. Olivieri, the WBO president, to the stage. Gustavo.
The pronunciation was excellent. How are you, sir? Good evening.
All right. Yo, man, thank you very much for coming on. I
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it, sir.
No. Thanks for bearing with me. Yesterday, I had a family issue to attend at the last minute, so apologies for the last minute change. But here we are, man. Giving face. What's up?
Yo, man, thank you. Like I said, I just want to give you your respect before we start because you're one of the only guys that I see that's at this top level of the belt organizations that's willing to be transparent. So thank you very much, man.
No, it's my pleasure, man. We're trying to do our best.
All right, so now let's start here because your organization, the WBO, is in the middle of some of the biggest talk in boxing. Yesterday, it was a crazy live stream. Bill Haney was up here. Keyshawn Davis was up here. They were arguing back and forth. These are the type of fights that fans are clamoring for.
Sure.
Now, firstly, I want to ask this question because we saw recently Keyshawn Davis was put to #1 in the WBO.
Sure.
Is the fight with Devin Haney, who's the champion, has that fight already been mandated? Like, is that mandated already, or is that something that's coming?
No. The answer to that question is no. It hasn't been formally mandated. Although the WBO, through its championship committee, has designated Keyshawn as the mandatory. However, there has been some concerns, some objections from the fans and other industry components which could be considered legitimate as to how Keyshawn from 140 being installed #1 and 147, right? And it's very good that we respond to that question because sometimes the fans are not knowledgeable to the extent of how these determinations come about, right? So, per the WBO rules and the Association of Boxing Commissions ratings, guidelines for criteria, when a fighter has satisfied at least or has completed or engaged or participated in either 4 fights scheduled for 10 rounds or 2 fights scheduled for 12 rounds, and that fighter has faced either a rated contender, his level of opposition, activity, his record, he could be considered in a top rating position, right? From 1 to 15. Those are guidelines to reduce the subjectivity in a rating structure, which is subjective in nature. So it's not perfect, right? Those are guidelines to you to take them in consideration for a rating structure, right? So it is important to highlight that per the WBO rules, when you have either a current champion or a former champion, who in this case, Keyshawn, he's undefeated, former world champion in lightweight. Thereafter, he couldn't make the weight. He transitioned to 140. He was installed #1 in 140 in light of his status as a former world champion undefeated. Per our rules and a policy per the WBO, when you have a champion or a former champion who has been undefeated and has satisfied other criteria, decides to move up or move down, he could be installed #1 and be the mandatory, right? We had a similar scenario in the past with Crawford. From 154, he jumped to 168, and we were highly criticized. How can Crawford move up to 168? He hasn't fought in that division. Well, the ratings criteria doesn't require that you fight in a higher weight class or in a lower weight class prior to being installed #1, be the mandatory. It's not required. It's not required textually or explicitly, right? You can have a legitimate argument as to, well, he hasn't fought in that particular weight class before to become the mandatory. Well, that's a valid argument, but you can also say, well, you got under Keyshawn, you got Pacquiao. He was inactive for, I believe, 4 years, and he got a chance to fight for the title against Barrios, that's another thing. We wouldn't allow that, right?
Right.
But Pacquiao inactive for 4 years, and now he's coming off a draw against Barrios. Underneath, you got Tio, who lost against Shakur in January. Under
Yep.
Tio, you got Barbosa, who lost to Catterall, and now he came back and fought a guy who was unrated for a regional title. And under Barbosa, you got Norman, who lost against Haney. So considering all those fighters, where Teofimo move up from 140 to 147, Barbosa who move up from 140 to 147, the inactivity of Pacquiao, the losses of Tio, Barbosa, Norman. Keyshawn is undefeated, former lightweight champion. He couldn't make 135 anymore. He suffered some difficulty in 140. He's
Yep.
moving up to 147. He's got the credentials, right? So the committee determined that, considering all those factors and all those facts that I have mentioned herein, that he was the most deserving for
Yeah.
that position, and that fight is a terrific fight in the welterweight division. I think it's the most intriguing fight. You got to consider the criteria. You got to consider the rules. You got to consider what decision best serves the interest of boxing, the WBO, the fans, also the champion, the challenger. So a lot of factors come into play. And I think, without shadow of a doubt, that's the best fight to make at
Mm,
147. And everyone is talking about your fans,
yeah.
your followers, the
Yeah.
media. So we're always going to have haters, followers, but I'm
Yeah.
not here to make public relations. I'm here to do the best that we can in the WBO for the fans and primarily for the fighters.
I like that, Gustavo. Thank you very much for that clarity on how you do that. So just another question on that specific part. Is it
Sure.
where the board and the committee decides, you guys sit in the room and you weigh all the factors that you just mentioned, and then
Sure.
you guys say, all right, well, we think based on these things, Keyshawn should be number one.
Yeah.
Is that something where you are the deciding factor?
No, 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 no. No, that's a good question. People think that the president makes all the rules. It doesn't operate that way, at least in the WBO. The
Okay.
president makes a recommendation, and that recommendation either is adopted or rejected by the championship committee, which is composed of 4 members.
Okay.
Those members need to reach a majority decision. If there's a tie in the ruling 2-2, for example, the president makes a vote to break up the tie. So what we do is, there's a petition filed by either Keyshawn's representatives, Top Rank, or his manager, or whoever has a legal authority to represent the fighter, files a request in writing, right? That request is received through the WBO main offices.
Okay.
And what I do is I refer that request to that championship committee. Dear members, right? And I put all the factors that I have mentioned
Yeah.
before you.
Yep.
And they make a ruling and they vote, and that voting chart results is issued to those members so they can see who voted at what time, at what date, and whether the vote was unanimous or majority, it was denied or approved, etc.
Is that
And
public,
once
Gustavo? We could see that as public. Can we see that?
we can certainly publish those voting charts. That's not a problem. We've done it in the past. It's not ordinarily done on every ruling, but traditionally we've done that.
Okay.
Me personally, what I do is, most of the rulings, if not all, we publish our rulings on the website, Twitter,
Yep.
Facebook, Instagram. I personally tweet. You've seen it on my tweet.
Yep. Yep. Okay. I
I'm
like
I'm striving to be full transparent. We're
and
not we're not perfect as a sanctioning body. And if I fuck up, I take it as a man. Hey, I fucked up here.
we appreciate that. So again, thank you very much for even giving us this insight, because this is something that we don't get a lot. Now, let me ask you this,
Yeah.
Mr. Gustavo. When is it exactly that you guys, as the WBO, will actually order the fight now that Keyshawn's number one? Keyshawn versus Devin Haney. When will that be ordered?
Probably by the end of this month or early July. We have to issue that negotiation letter for the mandatory.
Okay.
It's a
Okay.
matter of timing, but it's a done deal in the sense that Keyshawn is the mandatory for Haney, and Haney's camp has been advised in writing by the championship committee because you got to notify them in advance. Hey, champion, you got your mandatory coming up. Once the committee makes a decision, the committee will issue that negotiation letter with the timeline.
So we got a few weeks before we're gonna know what happens, right?
Sure. Once that negotiation letter is notified, is published, and the committee can grant the parties either no less than 10 days to negotiate or can grant the parties 15 days, 20 days, 30 days. No less than 10 days to reach a deal. And any of the parties during that negotiation stage
Wait,
can
I'm sorry.
request.
Say it one more time. You said no less than 10 days to reach a
Yeah.
deal?
Yeah, no. The rules provide, right? The rules require that negotiation period, the parties should have no less than 10 days to negotiate. We can give more, but no less than 10 days. You get me?
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
so the committee traditionally provides the parties either 15 days, 20 days, 30 days, 40 days. It's discretionary, but no less than 10 days,
So
right?
the committee decides how much time you actually get to negotiate.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
So let's say the committee issues the negotiation order, right? And the committee outlines, dear Team Haney, dear Tim Davis, you guys are hereby ordered to commence negotiations to discharge the mandatory obligation for the welterweight title. The parties are given 30 days to reach terms. If no deal is reached, within those 30 days, the WBO will order purse bid proceedings. If purse bid proceedings are ordered and conducted, this is the applicable purse split: 75% for the champion, 25% for the challenger. The winner of the purse bid must conduct a bout between no less than 45 days or greater than 90 days, right?
Okay.
Etc.
Yeah.
Any of the parties within that time lane of the negotiation stage can request a purse bid at any time. So that's basically the standard procedure.
Okay. Well, now let me ask you this. All right. So we know now, fans, y'all heard him say it. We have a couple of weeks. It might be 2-3 weeks, just about before we actually get the mandate.
But
Now,
it's coming. But it's coming. I can confirm to your show it's coming.
okay. All right. We like that. We like that. Now listen to this, Gustavo. There is now another organization that's shaking up boxing that
Yeah.
there are rumors, and no one
Yeah.
knows if it's confirmed, that Zuffa Boxing potentially might have signed Shakur Stevenson, might have signed Devin Haney. No one knows
Okay.
that. But, a couple of pundits have mentioned that if
Yeah.
Zuffa wanted to actually bid
Yeah.
on a first bid for the Keyshawn Devin Haney fight, is Zuffa allowed to bid for that?
As of today, they cannot bid because they are not a licensed WBO promoter. In order to bid in a WBO purse bid, you need to file what it's called the WBO promoter licensure form. You need to comply with those requirements. You need to pay a license fee. You need to get basically licensed, like a credential, to become a WBO bona fide promoter. If you comply with those requirements, you can bid. As of today, right now, Zuffa is not a WBO licensed promoter. Therefore, they would not be authorized to bid because you need to comply with the rules and be certified by the WBO as a up bona fide license and in good standing promotion.
That is very important that you said that. So now let
Yeah,
me ask you this, because there's definitely been in the boxing community, there's
yeah,
been a lot of opposition to Zuffa Boxing. If they
yeah,
came to you, Gustavo, and said, you know what, we want to get in good standing, we want to do what you just said and fill out
yeah.
all the work. Is that something that you are okay with if Zuffa Boxing came and wanted to do that with the WBO?
And Zuffa Boxing complies with all the required rules, policies, and requirements per our regulatory structure. Why wouldn't I allow that to why wouldn't I allow Zuffa to participate? I'm a licensed attorney, right? So that's my mindset. If they comply with the rules as any other promoter would, why wouldn't? You know,
Right.
I have to play by the rules. If they comply with the rules, they're being compliant, you know?
Right. Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. So now let me ask you this. There's a whole caveat that's been thrown into this WBO situation, and
Hmm.
that's for Stevenson.
Yeah.
Now, Devin Haney, Bill Haney, they've been very vocal on my show yesterday, on Instagram, Twitter, all of the above. They've been vocal about wanting to fight Shakur Stevenson at a catch weight of 144 pounds.
Hmm.
Now, if that were to move forward, right? Let's just say if those guys wanted to try to pursue, and I say those guys being both Shakur's camp and Devin's
Yeah.
camp, wanted to pursue a catch weight of 144 pounds, does that mean Devin Haney will be stripped of the WBO belt if they fight at 144?
I can't give you a formal response now because that would be irresponsible because it would be based on a speculative scenario, right? As
Yeah.
of now, what I can confirm is that Haney has to discharge his mandatory against Keyshawn. Let's say, for example, Devin would disregard his obligation to discharge the mandatory. I can confirm that the administrative process that would follow. The committee would issue what it's called a show cause notice for failure to comply with a mandatory obligation. A similar scenario like when we had Fundora against Zayas.
Yeah.
Fundora had to discharge his mandatory against Xander Zayas, and after we had everything in writing confirmed by Fundora's team, his promoter, his representative, that he would discharge the mandatory against Zayas. We had ordered the negotiations. At the last minute, Fundora decided to disregard that mandatory obligation, and we had to proceed with the applicable process, a show cost letter of why you're non non you've been non-compliant with the order, and that has certainly some legal repercussions. And ultimately, he got stripped.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. That
But
makes sense.
but everything's done in accordance with the rules, and we provide all of our champions. If there's a scenario whereby we have to take any affirmative action, we prepare a letter, a formal letter. The fighters are given due notice, what it's called due process, right?
Okay.
So we take everything. The way we operate is very strict, very serious, and professional.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, let me ask you this, Mr.
Yeah,
Gustavo, because Shakur is the WBO champion
he
at
is.
140 pounds,
Yeah,
and Devin is the champion at 147 pounds.
yeah.
Is there an exemption or or super champion status that can be allowed to make that fight happen? Is there like if Devin can become a super champion, so you can allow that fight without being stripped? Is that possible?
No, at this stage, at this juncture, it cannot be allowed as an exception because there's a mandatory pending.
Mm.
You get me?
Mm. So once the mandatory is pending, there's no exemptions allowed after that.
No, 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 because the mandatory has to be discharged, and there has been a ruling.
Wow. Okay. All
So
right.
let's say for example that Haney discharges the mandatory, and
Yep.
let's say for example he comes out successful, right? After that, if Team Haney wants to file a request for super champion status consideration, that's another scenario.
Right. Oh, so everything for super champion status, it would have to happen after the mandatory stuff is settled.
Correct. Yes, because there's a mandatory due, and when there's a mandatory that has to be discharged, the mandatory challenger is also entitled that his rights and interests are duly protected.
Got you. Now, is there a scenario where Devin can petition to fight Shakur Stevenson because he is like the guy, or the mandatory supersedes that? Is there a petition where they could say, hey, this guy's the champion at 140. I
Yeah.
know we have a mandatory, but we want to fight him. We want to petition to make that fight before Keyshawn. Is that even possible? Or you're saying mandatory still supersedes that as well?
At this juncture, the mandatory has to be discharged first. Yeah.
So we got to figure out what's happening with Keyshawn first, basically.
Yeah. Once he discharges the mandatory against Keyshawn, if he wants to request to be designated with super champion status, which is basically a privilege, right? It's not another title. It's a particular status based on his professional merits, accomplishments, whereby he's granted certain rights and privileges.
I got you. Now,
Got me?
how long is the mandatory usually, like the process between you're ordered, you are now the number one and you having to fight your mandatory? What are the rules between
Great question. Great question. When you win the title in a vacant championship, ordinarily the rules provide that you would need to discharge your mandatory 6 months thereafter, within 180 days, right? If it's a vacant title, if it's a defense that you're the challenger and you've won the title, ordinarily you get a term of within 9 months thereafter. So Haney won the title last November.
So it's
You
a
see?
9
Yeah.
months from November.
Yeah,
you have-
within intervals no greater than 9 months, which means that the committee has discretion either to order the mandatory before 9 months, but no more than 9 months. You get me?
I do get you. Okay. Now, do you guys, as the WBO, have a preference in, because again, these two fights are two of the biggest fights that people are talking about in the boxing community. Do
Yeah.
you guys have a preference as to which fight you want? Is it like we just
No,
want
no. We don't have a dog in this fight. That's something that is the sole and an exclusive responsibility of the promoters. We don't produce fights. We don't promote fights, right? We try to create what will be the term? The WBO basically sanctions fights, right? Rates contenders and provides maybe the best safety and regulatory standards for the fights to be conducted under our banner, right? With implementation of security and safety standards, continued education for referees and judges, inspectors, supervisors, a more regulatory aspect is involved within our jurisdiction and standards. But we don't got a dog in this game. You get me? As to which fight we want to happen, because both matchups are terrific.
Right. Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. Now let me ask a question. I'm sorry if you got a time constraint, Gustavo.
No. I put it's 8 p.m. my man. I'm putting the work in. I have a commitment with you. My word is my bond.
Thank you, sir. I'll make it quick. We wrapping up now.
Yeah.
Let me ask this though, because this is another part of everything that's going on. Sanction fees have been a hot topic in the sport of boxing, right?
Yep.
Like there are a lot of fighters. Terrence Crawford has been very vocal.
Sure.
And I'm not saying specific to the WBO, but just a lot of fighters have been mentioning sanctioning fees and how they feel sometimes they're unfair and they don't necessarily like to pay them. Can you explain why sanctioning fees are important for the WBO?
Well, first, if we don't receive sanctioning fees, we can't operate, right? This is a non-profit organization. Most of the funds, if not all, I would say 99% of the funds that we receive are dependent on the sanctioning fees. We may receive some minor sponsorships from government entities or private entities to subsidize certain initiatives like boxing gym donations, boxing gym renovations. We may have alliances or strategic partnerships like Jake Paul's Boxing Bullies Foundation, so we can combine efforts to subsidize nonprofit projects like the ones I just mentioned. But we're dependent on the sanctioning fees to operate because we need funds to pay expenses, housing, utilities, bills, staff, etc. But the WBO, for example, we're based in San Juan. It's a little office. We can have maybe 4 employees, right? Most of our membership around the world are working at will, so they work for free. Only the president has a nominal salary, which is public. I'm a licensed attorney. I'm not depending on this job. I also have my legal practice. I think we have 4 vice presidents that receive a salary, a minor salary, so they can cover their expenses within their regions as to office, utilities, minor salaries, etc. But most of our executive committee members, they work at will because either they are retired professionals in their respective areas of expertise. Others are lawyers with their respective practices. Others are entrepreneurs. They have their own businesses. But the sanctioning fees, and I completely understand the argument of the fighters, right? Why do I have to pay a sanctioning fee? And it's a valid, credible argument, right? But again, what I'm trying to do, at least from the WBO under my presidency, is to provide the fighters something in exchange for the payment of the sanctioning fees, right? First of all, the fighters are notified in advance. You want to fight for a title, it carries some implications, right? And one of the implications is the financial, the subject matter of paying a sanctioning fee. You're not obliged to pay the sanctioning fee. Either you want to fight for the title or you don't want to fight for the title.
Right.
If you pay a sanctioning fee, at least with the WBO, what I'm trying to do is give you something in exchange to justify paying that sanctioning fee, right? For example, financial literacy program, right? A legal assistant. If you have a financial burden that we can help you with, contribution in your community, any type of social or nonprofit or charity work, a gym donate equipment, a boxing equipment donation in your gym, help you renovating your gym, etc. Advising fighters of how to use social media to generate other revenue streams not depending on boxing, right?
Yeah.
Teach fighters how to what is called, for example, create their own brand. Fighters are their own brand. For example, how fighters should address the media. How
Oh no.
can you hear me?
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. You might have got a call. You got a call?
Yeah, Keith Connolly calling me, but I'll call him in a bit.
Uh-oh, Keith Conley. We know Keith Conley up to some business. That's Keith Conley.
Yeah, so for example, I'm trying to develop programs or initiatives that can benefit directly the fighter. That the fighters would say, I'm paying a fee, true, but I'm getting these services directly for my benefit, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do, because the problem with the sanctioning fees is that if the, what exactly do the organizations use the sanctioning fees for, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
that's the primary concern. But I can tell the fans and your followers everything that the WBO does, we do it publicly, transparent. All our relevant information pertaining to financials is published at the website of the Federal Trade the Federal Trade Commerce, right?
Yeah.
You can access and you can see the salaries, the positions, our tax returns, everything.
Well, let me ask you this: will there ever be? Because I spoke to Deontay Wilder, and it
Yeah,
actually went viral, and he mentioned he felt like organizations should have a cap on how much money, especially
we
when it's
no,
oh, you
we
have
have
a
a
cap.
cap.
You have a
Yeah,
cap?
we have
Oh,
a cap because
okay.
it's something. The cap is something sensible. You got to be reasonable as well.
Yeah.
The fighters are taking the risk. Excuse me. So our cap is 250,000, which means a
That's fair. That's
fighter
fair. That's
a,
fair.
a, a fighter can earn 20 million and the cap is 250, right? And and the fighter pays his sanctioning fee, but the fighter is not deducted anything else pertaining to officials, pertaining to supervisors, etc. Those fees are paid by the promoter. So
Okay.
the fighter only pays his respective sanctioning fee. And the WBO, when you have a unified champion, our percentage is 2, not 3. So we understand and we're cognizant that the fighter's paying for 2 or more titles. So we
Yeah.
understand that, and we have to be reasonable. And finally, regarding that, the sanctioning fee team, when you have fighters that reach out to the WBO, hey, WBO, I got this situation. Can we try to negotiate a reasonable fee? We've done it in the past, right?
Oh, so you guys are even willing to negotiate with the fighter on certain things.
Yeah, because you have to be cognizant, you have to be sensible, reasonable, and sometimes fighters may have a particular situation that you have to be also understanding, right?
Yeah.
Again, this is a nonprofit. We're not here for the greed. We're not here for the money, like many people may rightfully argue because of past instances with or situations with other sanctioning bodies. But you can ask Bud Crawford, you can ask Shakur, you can ask Keyshawn, you can ask other fighters that have been with the WBO how we operate and treat them, and they'll speak for themselves.
Okay, I like that. Now, just a couple more questions before I let you go.
Shoot, shoot.
Hypothetically, again,
Yeah.
hypothetically, Shakur and Devin want the fight. Hold up. Well, actually, before I get to that, did you know that Shakur and Devin Haney wanted to fight each other before that order was happened? Did you guys know that before?
It's been publicly known for months that they've been going on back and forth on Twitter. But
Yeah.
remember, but regardless of the back and forth on Twitter and social media, etc., I have to operate within the facts and in accordance with my rules. I can't just speculate.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. Well, let me ask you again the percentage of the mandatory. You said, is it so if it goes to purse bid, Keyshawn
Yeah,
versus Devin Haney, it's 75 for the champion and 25% for the challenger.
correct.
And that's across all, whoever it is. 75 champion, 25 challenger if it goes to purse bid.
Yeah, it depends also where the fight is conducted. That depending on the geographical area where the fight is conducted, that split may change.
Got it.
But in this case, both being American and fighting in America, right? Most
Yeah.
likely,
Yeah.
that's the split 75-25.
Okay. So again, and this is the original question I was going to ask.
Yeah,
Hypothetically, and I know you can't necessarily answer this right now because it's not
yeah,
realistic, but
yeah,
hypothetically, if Team Haney says after you send them the notice that says, "Hey, Keyshawn's your mandatory, you got to fight
yeah,
him," blah blah blah, and they tell you, Gustavo, you know what? We actually want to pursue a fight with Shakur Stevenson,
yeah.
so we're going to pursue that fight at 144. Hypothetically, if that were to happen, now the WBO would say, okay, that's fine, but now we have to strip you of that belt if that's the decision you want to make.
I don't know because I'm not sure what the committee will rule. I don't make the decision. If that scenario arises, the only thing that I can recommend to the committee, championship committee, you need to proceed in accordance with the rules and the policies, right?
Okay, so theoretically, there's a possibility that the WBC, or excuse me, I said WBC, WBO can rule and say, you know what, we're not going to strip him. We'll allow that fight to happen. Theoretically, that is possible.
Theoretically possible, but highly unlikely.
Oh, okay. Theoretically possible, highly unlikely.
Because remember, I've been working the BO for 10 years. It's my second year as president, but I've seen how we operate and we're consistent. We're consistent in our rules, the way we operate, the way we conduct ourselves. And when there's a ruling already rendered, we
Yeah.
go forward because it would be inconsistent.
I understand that. All right. Last couple. Oscar Collazo. He has a fight coming up this weekend. I know his original opponent, they said, had visa issues and is not going to be able to make it. Is the WBO granting the title for his new opponent?
Yeah, let me provide you some context. Once we receive confirmation that Collazo's original opponent could not get a working visa to participate on Saturday, well, we immediately activated, right? The championship committee reaching out to the promoter. Hey, what are your plans? Do you have a backup? What are you going to do? The promoter, Miguel Cotto Promotions and Golden Boy, they submitted a letter in writing saying, hey, in light of these new developments, we have a substitute opponent called Luis Castillo, a Mexican guy, 22, 1-1. He had fought for the world title against Jerusalem, Melvin Jerusalem, former WBC champion. He had lost via unanimous decision, but he had come back with a win. He was active. He could comply with the weight. Right? He
Yep.
complied with everything. Once we got that letter, the championship committee urgently convened. They approved that late replacement. However, on the following day, word got out to us by their promoter that Castillo, the original substitute, didn't have a working visa. So that
Mm.
so that created another problem. So yesterday, uh, Golden Boy reached out again and submitted another letter through email saying that they had found another opponent by the name of Nader Alvarez, if I recall correctly, or Nader Aguilar Alvarez, right?
Alvarez, hold up. Let me look. I gotta look. Where is he in the rankings?
Yeah,
Alvarez.
I think he's number 15. He was installed today in light of the committee's ruling, an urgent ruling, based on all the circumstances that I'm going to explain now.
Okay. All right. I don't see him on on
Number
box.
15. Number 15 in the WBO.com male ratings, world ratings, any
Okay.
flyweight. So
Okay.
so once we get that letter, there's a concern, obviously, of the fighter's professional record, right? At least he's satisfied the minimum requirements to be rated, right? He's fought uh, three times at 10 rounds. He's fought for the world title as well. So technically, he could be considered for a world rating, right? And he's coming off a win. He's active. So you also have to consider the proximity of the event, the issue with the entry visa for the original opponent, the lack of depth of the division. 105 pounders, most of them are either from the Philippines, Mexico, Argentina, Japan, Asia. Most of those countries require a visa for entry. You also have to consider the administrative process to be granted a visa, right? So also, Colosso's the main event. Golden Boys secure a venue. They got a TV date. Tickets are on sale. Everything's in motion. So, in light of all those circumstances, being
Yeah.
an extraordinary scenario, and trying to seek making a ruling that best serves the interests of boxing, the champion, the promoter, the tickets, uh, everything, all those factors, the committee said we're going to grant this one-time exception without the exception being construed as a precedent. So this is an exception, and we're going to sanction the fight based on all those circumstances that I've mentioned.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. I like that. Now talk about the heavyweights. Daniel Dubois
Yeah.
is the champion. There's a young guy named Moses Atama that's looking
Ooh,
very
what a
scary.
beast! What
Oh
a
my
beast, my
God,
man.
Gustavo, this guy is looking very scary, and he is
Yeah.
number one in the division. When does that get ordered? Dubois versus Moses Itama.
Okay, Itama is the mandatory. He's been designated the mandatory, and we have recently sent out official notices to Queensberry, telling Queensberry Promotions, hey, you got a mandatory. Moses Itauma, we've seen reports that Warley has triggered the rematch. Let us know what are your plans so we can proceed accordingly. So we should be getting an official communication within the next couple of days or weeks as to what will Warley and Dubois will do. Both of them are promoted by Queensberry as
Yep.
well as Itauma. So the only way that the committee will allow the rematch to take place is that both fighters confirm in writing to the WBO that the winner will face Itauma next, and also Itauma has the key. If Itauma agrees with those conditions, no problem.
If Itama agrees to that the rematch with Dubois and Wardley, you're saying that he could get it next. After that, he could get it automatically.
Yeah,
Itama.
because he's the mandatory. If Itauma said no, I want to fight now. Well, the rematch does not bind the WBO. That's a contractual provision between private parties. I don't get involved in that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
However, if the parties tell the WBO we have an agreement, which includes Itauma, we want to do the rematch with the winners fighting Itauma next, and I have that in writing, we can approve it.
I love that. I love that. All right, my last question, Gustavo.
Last one.
Last one. How do you feel about, because there's this one word that comes across in boxing all the time. The word is called duck. They call you a duck if you don't do certain things, you don't fight certain guys. They put this label of you, or they say that you ducking. How do you feel? I just want to know your personal feelings. It's not necessarily WBO anything. Do you think if a guy doesn't fight his mandatory, is that ducking? What you think, Gustavo?
No, man, that's bullshit. Fighters are fighters, and fighters will fight anybody. That's in their DNA. Sometimes fighters, they make a decision. Most of their decisions are based on a financial right? It's their bread and butter. So I don't blame a fighter when a fighter wants to pursue another route because of other interests, right? Primarily the financial one comes into play. I don't blame them, so I don't call any fighter a duck. My utmost respect to all of the fighters, world champions, contenders, prospects, because to get in the ring, man, and that's, you got to tip up mad respect to the fighters.
Xander Zayas told me that Fundora ducked. That's what Xander Zayas said. Fundora ducked him. That's what he told me.
Well, that's Xander Zayas, man. You got to ask Fundora that question.
But you don't agree? You don't agree?
I don't know. I haven't talked to Fundora, so I can't comment on that,
All right. Yo, listen, Gustavo, thank you very much for your insight. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, my man.
Just as the president, and you're doing your thing, especially year 2. I like to see more years coming because you doing your thing and you one of the best doing this. Thank you very much, sir.
I'm trying, no, and please keep, if you need to criticize whatever we do and prosecute us and object, you need to keep doing it, because boxing we need to be more transparent, forthright, tell the fans what's going on, educate, inform the fans. And, with more education and more disclosure and transparency, everyone wins. And lastly, my man, I'll give you now the announcement here. The first ever unified convention, WBO and IBF joining forces. We're having our first convention, the first convention where 2 sanctioning bodies are getting together in the history.
Wow.
From the 9th through the 13th of December in Orlando. We're gonna have a boxing show whereby the WBO regional champions are facing the IBF regional champions, or the WBO world champion is unifying with the IBF world champion. Belts matter. Okay, my man?
I love that. Oh, you in Puerto Rico? You live in Puerto Rico?
I'm in Puerto Rico. When are you coming? I see you having a wine, my man. You need to have a cold one here. Okay?
Listen, I work with Rimas. I work in music industry. Rimas.
Oh, yeah?
So if you ever need to connect, Bad Bunny, that's my man. You feel me?
Okay, well, we tell Rimas we had to reach out to see if they were willing to join our partnership with Jake Paul's Boxing Bully Foundation to renovate gyms. I sent them the proposal, but I haven't heard a word.
I'm gonna call Noah after this. I'm gonna text you. Noah's the president. Noah's
I know.
I'll hit up Noah and let's figure it out.
Okay, my man. Take care.
Right. Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.